Welcome to Backyard OASIS, a podcast designed by and for older adults living in the beautiful Pioneer Valley of Western Massachusetts and produced in the tech studios at Greenfield Community College in Greenfield, Massachusetts. Backyard OASIS reaches out to older adults who seek knowledge to help them live more thoughtfully, healthily, and happily, who hope to inspire others with their ideas, and who serve their communities in the interest of the greater good. We hope you join us frequently in our pleasant Backyard OASIS for wide-ranging conversations with a diversity of people who are growing older and want to talk about it.
Hi, I'm Denise Schwartz, your host. You know, maybe you're a lot like me. I reach for the ibuprofen and I see the acetaminophen beside it and I think, what should I take for how I feel today? I mean, are they really that different? And if so, how are they different? And oh, look, right there. There's that name brand version of ibuprofen right over there. Is that better than the generic one? I don't know. I'm not really sure what to take or what to do. That's because there is so much we don't know about the medications we take as prescribed or that we purchase over the pharmacy's counter. My guest today will take us on the journey a medication makes from its creation in the lab, through testing and regulation, and into the pharmacy where you pick it up and take it home. It's a journey that takes longer than you may think, and there will almost always be some side trips along the way. My guest is Jill Shuman, a retired science writer and librarian from the Boston area. She has spent most of her life working alongside pharma companies of all sizes as they've developed new drugs for rare diseases, better drugs for more common conditions, and vaccines during a pandemic. She's an advocate for people asking lots of questions about the medications they take and for having open conversations with healthcare providers about benefit versus risk. Hello, Jill.
Hey, Denise. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, too. And just because it's the New Year, that's not why I was referencing the ibuprofen or anything. I just want you to know that. But, you know, talking about all those medications that we have, let's just start at the beginning. And you're going to take us on this journey, okay? How do those pills get to us? And I know it's a long journey.
Right.
And hey, Jill, please, don't mind my non-scientific vocabulary when I ask questions such as, what happens in the lab? Does a scientist notice something like, say, a mold growing in a petri dish that kills a bacterium, and the scientist thinks, could this be useful? Or is it more like, we need to find a drug that affects this disease in a positive way, so let's get started working on it? What happens?
Well, in the past 20 years, it's been more of the latter. It's been more about, as we learn more about disease and conditions, and we learn about the track of those disease and conditions, are they curable? Are they treatable? The drug development process is now more about honing in on a condition to manage it, treat it, or eradicate it. In the old days, however, the really old days, you mentioned something about petri dishes and mold. And
Right.
that's exactly the way that penicillin came about. People knew that in nature, mold caused bacteria to slow down growth. So a gentleman with Alexander Fleming was doing an experiment in Scotland, and it turns out that indeed, when mold grew on a petri dish, there was a much decreased number of Staphylococcus bacteria. Light bulb goes off, and maybe this is something that we can use commercially. I mean,
Wow.
that aspirin you mentioned was developed from the bark of a willow bark tree.
Yeah, willow.
And actually, one of the medications, paclitaxel, that women take for breast cancer is from a yew tree. So
Yes.
a lot of this stuff comes from nature, but most of it comes as a response to curing or managing a disease in the lab.
You know, I do want to talk about how some of it is derived from nature, because I think what happens, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think what happens is we are now synthesizing the compounds that we found in plants.
Yes, that
and
is true.
and using those in creating medications. I thought it was really interesting. You mentioned too that I had already known about Taxol because we've all kind of read about that. But the foxglove plant, and then we can talk about plants and medicines a little later if you want to. But the foxglove plant is where we get digitalis, which
Right.
treats heart conditions.
Yeah.
I think that if more people, knew that these have long histories of helping humans in certain ways, that we might feel more comfortable about what our medications are. And I know you're going to talk about that.
Well, there is a whole field of pharmacology that's called ethnobiology. And basically, they go out and look in the Brazilian rainforest, for example. There's all kinds of research going on in rainforests and other ecologic um, places all over the world that is exactly going back and looking for substances in some of you know, we don't
Plants
have
and
access
animals
to a
and
lot
stuff.
of the biology in the rainforest. But yes, there's a whole field of it that is looking at plants and medicine. It's
Isn't that
fascinating.
wonderful? Are you doing any work in that, Jill? Have you?
I have not, but I have a good friend in the pharma industry. She studied that, and she's great fun going to a botanical garden with because she can
Oh,
say to me, that is a so-and-so plant 1,000 years ago that was used to treat miscarriage, things like that. So
oh my
it's really
gosh.
interesting. Yep.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Hey, before we go start that long journey of from lab to home, could you just tell our listeners a little bit about your experience working with medications and so on? I mean, you
Sure.
were a library person and you were
Right.
a
I am not a
researcher.
pharmacist. I am not a pharmacologist. I am not somebody who works in the lab. What I do is to supply those people who work at pharmaceutical companies, big and small, with research they need to push their developments forward. So in that realm, I read a whole lot about new drug development. And because I've been so interested in it, I have learned, all the statistics about drug development and I've actually spent time in the lab watching them and learning more. And did an internship at the Food and Drug Administration years ago that included the process of getting a drug to market.
Well, you have learned a lot, and I hope you share some of that with us now. So why don't we start that journey? So what happens in the lab, and can you go through those steps? I don't know. It seemed to me when I tried to read about it that there were like 5, 6, 7, 10, I don't know, thousands of steps, and it takes quite a long time. So go ahead.
Well, you'll be surprised at two things, I think. One is that the length of time from when they have the aha moment in the lab to the first time a label goes on that drug and is sold over the counter can be upwards of 12 years. So
Wow.
that is
Well,
a long time.
okay.
And the cost for that, and this has a lot to do with why drugs cost what they do, and we can have a whole nother conversation
Oh
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
For a smaller startup that maybe is developing one single drug, it can take them 12 years and cost up to $250 million to bring that drug to market.
Well, isn't that what we pay to get it? $250 million, and that's for a month's supply. So I mean, come on.
And that's
No,
making some
huh?
assumptions. It can be more than that. That's making assumptions that um, how they test it is efficient, that they, outsource it appropriately to a group that can handle it, and that there are no major failures in the
Oh yeah, yeah,
last
yeah, yeah, yeah.
in the last testing groups that will cause them to say, "Oh my goodness, this doesn't work. We're going to scrap this."
Oh dear. Well,
Yes,
let's not get to that point yet. Take
yes.
us back to the lab.
Okay. So, um, a scientist or a company has an idea that they want to create a drug for, I don't know,
And we can
let's
make
go
up a
back a few
disease.
years. And
Okay.
childhood leukemia
Okay.
25 years ago was pretty much a death sentence.
Wow.
And most children died within a year of the diagnosis.
Oh
And
my.
Dana-Farber here in Boston, Dana-Farber Cancer Center, set about to create drugs to probably not cure, but mitigate
Right.
childhood leukemia. and perhaps prolong the lifespan of children with this devastating diagnosis. And I'm very happy to report that 25 years later, the lifespan for a child first diagnosed with childhood leukemia is now at least 10 years. So think how we've come from a year
Right.
life expectancy. So that was a case where the lab critically knew what they were doing. They were out to cure a specific thing, to work on a specific disease. There are other drug companies that take a compound that looks like has been interesting. And they say, well, we're not exactly sure what this will do, but we're going to try it for a couple of different diseases and see what happens.
Wow.
And it happens more often than you know, actually. There are a couple of big drug companies out there that are testing the same compound for different immunologic conditions, for example, and
Right.
whichever
That would
one
make
hits
sense.
the jackpot first, woohoo. Um, but I want to make people comfortable with the process of how a drug gets
Oh,
tested.
good.
And
Okay.
this process has been in place for probably the past 30 years, prompted in part by two things. Prompted in part by, well, one thing really, and that was, and we're old enough to remember this, the drug thalidomide
Right. I
had not
remember.
been properly
Yeah.
tested. It was used as a sleep aid, actually.
Oh, my.
And it had not been tested in pregnant women. And then
Oh,
pregnant women took it,
boy.
and they had a very high incidence of infants being born with limb failures
Yes.
and whatever.
Yes. It was
So in
horrible.
fact, yes, in fact, this approval process was refined greatly in light of that. So let's say the scientist has an idea and he is looking at a way to help somebody with rheumatoid arthritis, let's say,
Okay.
live a better life. So, excuse me, that may be a molecule they're already testing for something else, or it may be a molecule they've read about in the science, and they have ways of building these molecules. They can buy the raw materials for them. They can do a computer simulation of what it should look like. There are patents that they can look at, et cetera, et cetera. So eventually
Okay.
they get the molecule that they want. And they do more research and they decide, all right, this looks promising in the research that we've seen, but we need to do some testing before we bring it to test on humans.
Okay. But
So
oh,
it goes
dear.
through what's called preclinical testing. In the old days, and you and I are both very,
Don't. No, let's not talk about that part.
okay.
Okay.
Well, it used to be done on animal testing, and more and more and
Yeah.
more now it is not. I'm very happy to report that
Okay. That's good to
more
hear.
than 60% of labs are no longer doing animal testing. They're doing other kinds of testing.
Okay. That's
So
good.
turns out that's called preclinical. If everything works as it should, they're getting the responses they expect to get from the literature they've been reading and from other drugs that are on the market. They then move it, they have to apply to the Food and Drug Administration to actually make it for humans. You can't
Okay.
just give it to a human. They get their approval from FDA and the drug goes into what's known as phase 1 testing, in which case they are looking at safety only. Phase 1
Oh.
testing
Oh.
is done in humans, very small groups of humans who have volunteered, and they look at safety only. And that's usually the shortest phase of the process.
Wait.
And if
Wait.
it
Wait. Wait.
looks like, yep,
That means, like, if it's not safe, that means that the people who were used in the testing have really bad reactions to
they
it,
might
or
have a
they
bad reaction. They might, yeah, they might, yeah, a bad reaction, an adverse event, same thing. Yes.
adverse event.
In
Okay.
which case the drug will go back to the lab and FDA and the company will sit down together and say, maybe if we lower the dose, that would be different. So if it gets through phase 1, it then goes to what's known to phase 2, which is a small trial, again, of volunteers who have voluntarily, not are forced, they're not prisoners, they're not, any one group of people. That has
Okay.
been discussed.
Yes.
They have signed up to be a part of this trial. Most likely they have a family history or the disease itself that's being looked at. Maybe they have rheumatoid arthritis. And a small group of people, maybe 50, 60, 70 people, will either get the drug or not get the drug in a trial. You don't know what you're getting. Yep.
I don't want to change the flow here but how do these people know? I mean, how are they selected? Do their like docs volunteer them or?
Their rheumatologist might tell them about this trial that's going on.
Okay.
There are many, many, many media options to find out about clinical trials. There are whole
Okay.
groups of companies that list nothing but clinical trials.
Okay. So
As
if
a
you
matter of
have,
fact, yeah.
I'm sorry. So if you have like something that's going on, your doctor might be able to, or your specialist
Absolutely.
might be able
Or
to
he
say,
might even
there
be
is this thing.
participating in one. He might be one of the
Okay.
doctors in the trial.
Okay.
Most
All right.
big medical centers have a clinical trial arm where they are running trials.
Area. Okay.
So
I'm sorry. So let's go
that's
back.
okay.
Yeah.
Phase 2 is both safety and efficacy. Does it do what it was supposed to do?
Yeah.
Or maybe it does something different that's also interesting.
Oh.
What happened, and the key example of this, and I'm not advocating for this drug in any way, shape, or form, but the key example of this is Viagra. Viagra was initially tested as a drug to treat high blood pressure.
No
It did
way.
not treat high blood pressure, but it had a very interesting set of other side effects.
Oh my gosh. And did they find those other side effects out in the trials?
In the trial, yes.
Oh, so some people said, oh, wait a minute, this thing is happening to me.
Yep.
In the trial, and they were like, we know we can capitalize on this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh dear.
So
okay, got
in
it.
the trial, when you're in the trial, you are in contact with the people who are running the trial, the doctors, the clinical trial coordinators throughout the trial, and you're reporting your symptoms. A few times a year, you'll go in and they'll test your blood pressure, they'll test your bloods to make sure that it, internally you're doing okay on the medication, et cetera. And I will tell you that almost every clinical trial has a payment component to it. Most people
it does. So
will get paid for being in a trial.
Okay.
Typically through whatever your insurance plan is. Most
Wow.
insurance plans will pay for you to be in a trial.
Is it a pretty big payment, Jill?
No.
Okay.
But
All
you
right.
have the joy of being part of science.
No,
And
that's a
then
really important thing. Yeah.
it is
Okay.
important.
Yeah.
And then you have the phase 3 component, which is after the drug results from phase 2 are looked at, they are unlocked because these are all locked data. Nobody knows what's going on throughout the trial, not even the physicians or healthcare providers who are running it. So the unlocking of the data is a big deal in a pharmaceutical company because that's where you look statistically at how everybody did. What were the most common adverse events that you see listed on the TV ads? What were the most, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Is that where the
as that phase closes out, and hopefully the data are suggestive that this is a good drug and with a risk benefit that is in favor of risk. I'm sorry, in favor of benefit, not risk.
Yeah. No,
It
not
will
risk.
move into phase 3, and phase 3 are very large clinical trials. Typically now they want to find people of different ethnicities. They want to find people
sure.
of different ages because not all drugs work in all people the same way. For example, we've learned with hepatitis C drugs that people, for whatever reason, of Egyptian ancestry have
Okay.
a different gene component, and they don't respond to the hepatitis C drugs in the way that most of the populations do. It's really interesting.
Wow. It's fascinating.
So, and of course now, well, the trend has been to include more women in trials because we know that women and men metabolize drugs very differently, different doses. So anyway, phase 3 can be thousands and thousands of people all over the world, can be just in one place. Most trials now are what they call multi-center, so different places are running these trials. The trials are all run exactly the same way. The procedures done are all the same from
They would have
center to
yeah.
center. So then the big day comes and the phase 3 results are unlocked and hopefully they look great,
And the
more than it
baby is
met.
born.
Yes, it met its endpoints, whatever the drug was supposed to do, it met them. People felt relatively good on the drug. The side effects, maybe people were nauseous or had headaches, but there's always a placebo effect where people will have headaches and whatever.
Sure.
And then they compare the results in most cases of the group who got the placebo, who got like sugar pills,
Right.
versus the people who got the active drug. And if the active drug people meet the criteria for success, then a lot of writing is done, and I came in very handy here. A lot of statistics are put together, and an entire regulatory package is sent to the FDA for approval. There is so
Wow.
much paperwork in these packages that it used to take 8 tractor trailers to bring them to FDA.
No
Literally.
way,
Yes,
Jill.
literally. And now it's all done electronically, of course. I have
Oh,
a
yeah, of
picture of
course.
that somewhere of that truck.
Oh my gosh. Can we use that, Alex? Let's get that picture of that truck. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
And so it goes, all of that material goes to FDA. There used to be a wait time of between 6 and 9 months before any decision was made by FDA. Now it's longer because the agency is no longer staffed the same way it was. So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
taking longer.
So
And if
we've
FDA,
heard.
oh, and in the meantime, while FDA is deciding, the company is choosing a name, a commercial name, because
Oh God.
up
We could
until
do a
now,
whole we
I
could do a
know.
whole show on those names, right?
Absolutely.
Oh my
Z's
gosh.
and X's are very popular right now.
Oh, they're so stupid.
Um, so a name is being chosen, a label is being chosen, and all of the material that's written in that teeny print that comes in your prescription is being developed as well. And all that has to go to FDA too,
Also. Oh my
because
gosh.
FDA won't approve a drug that has a name they deem too similar commercially to another drug on the market.
Oh my God.
So when that big day comes and everything is done, it could be labor of have been up to 12 years, but if it's successful, it's known as a blockbuster. And to recognize the work that has been put in and the amount of money that has been put in, drugs are given a 12-year patent protection so that when you bring out a new, I don't know, rheumatoid arthritis drug that is different from one that is already on the market, you get patent protection on that drug. Nobody else can recreate that for 12 years.
But they can make some variations and that would be okay.
They cannot until 12 years. A generic
Wow.
cannot be brought until the commercial drug has had its run.
So, okay, so from that point, we have to get it into the shelves. But I want to ask you, since you
Yep.
brought up generic,
hmm
are they really that different? And I mean, there is this thing about a lot of the generics are made in places other than in our fair country here.
That is
And
true.
that there are some things that have happened. We've seen a lot of fraud happen in that case and some kind of questionable results. So,
Yep.
how do we look at the originals and the generics when we finally do get them into our own medicine cabinets?
The generics are typically, and this is the research that I have read, are typically the same molecular structure from the brand name to the generic. Where the differences sometimes come are in the additives, like a coating, for example, might be a
Oh,
little different. And that might react differently in different people. I take 4 medications a day, and all of them are generic. And
oh.
I
And you're
use
still with us. And
Yes,
you're
I'm
still with
still
us,
here.
Jill.
Two
So
of
we're
them
fine.
used to be brand name until they came off patent, so I could then get them
Oh,
generically. And in my experience, I have had absolutely no issue with them. They are made overseas, I know that. Maybe I'm lucky, but the Commonwealth of Massachusetts doesn't give you a whole lot of choice. If there is a generic version, the healthcare provider is supposed to prescribe that.
yes, right.
they can do it differently, but that takes an extra step in the process.
Oh dear, we don't need that.
Right.
Okay.
Um,
So then
so
we should feel okay about taking the generics, even though some of the things we read make it sound like, oh no, 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 there are different kinds of ingredients. They didn't really test it well.
right.
How do you feel about that? And then we can move on after that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like and I can only base it on my experience and the people around me. Everybody I know that
Right.
takes generic drugs has been just fine.
All right.
Um,
Can I ask you a question about something a little bit different?
sure.
Okay, so when I see the names, I see these on, when we're watching the news, because then we're just flooded with commercials for
Yep.
food and medications. And I see these names, and a lot of them end with MAB, I think.
Yep.
And I think you told me that that represents a biologic. What are
Yes.
biologics?
A biologic drug is a drug that is made from human, not made, yeah, made from. The raw ingredients include human products like tissue or blood or antibodies. And
Oh,
they are typically much more expensive than non biologics because they are very, very large molecules. And the processing of them has to be done in a very closed environment that costs a lot of money to make. And they're typically injectables.
oh,
Very
right.
rarely do you see a biologic that is an oral, although they are starting to come out. Yep.
So are they really like taken from human tissue so that
Yes.
when that is injected in me, I have somebody else's tissue going into me? I mean, some listeners may say, Denise, don't you know this stuff? But honestly, I don't.
Yes, at some point in time, that did come from a human tissue, from a tissue bank, for example, or it came from
Oh,
human blood.
oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I mean, you didn't, you know, we don't go and ask your husband to give us tissue that we're going to, make a drug
Inject
from.
into
There
me.
are there are banks of these kinds of raw materials that are used. They are considered very large molecules versus your Advil or your
Yeah, yeah,
blood
yeah.
pressure medicine that is a very small molecule and much, much easier to manufacture.
And are there larger risks when you are using one of these, and since it's made a
Not
different
really,
way?
not really, but it can be difficult to dose because in many cases the reimbursement for the drug is
Oh
based
dear.
on whether you do it at home or whether you do it in the doctor's office. So it can
Oh,
be a little more, you know, onerous. These drugs are a little bit more onerous in terms of how you take them. But they are wonderful drugs and can treat things like inflammatory diseases like arthritis and particularly gastro diseases like Crohn's disease. They're wonderful at treating
really?
those. Yep.
At some
So,
point, we'll talk about how, and that
yep.
will be in a different episode. But
Yep.
as we're still in this one, I
Yep.
wanted to ask you something. I know we're skipping a part of the process about how the drugs actually do get to us, but I wanted to talk about something that I didn't really ever know that much about. And you had mentioned that you believe that using medications is a two-way street,
Hmm.
and that we have to really be part of the process when we take our medications. Can we talk about that for a minute?
Absolutely.
You feel really strongly about
I
this, you
feel
said.
extremely strongly about
Tell me
this.
what you mean. I'm not really sure.
So you, um, let's say you go to your healthcare provider, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily your doctor in the state, and you are prescribed a new medicine. There are
Mm-hmm.
some people that will go fill the prescription, take the medicine, and maybe they don't feel great. Maybe they feel tired. Maybe they're throwing up. Maybe whatever. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm having a bad day. Well, when that bad day extends to 3 or 4 weeks, and you think
Oh.
about it, and the only thing that has changed in that 3 or 4 weeks is maybe this new medication you're on,
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's time to call your healthcare provider who prescribed it and say, look, this is how I'm feeling. My hair is falling out, or I'm nauseous
Wow.
all the time, or whatever. Do you think this could be related to this new drug? And a good healthcare provider will say, oh my goodness, does sound like that. Why don't you come in and maybe we'll talk about lowering the dose, or maybe we'll talk about something that's been on the market a little longer without those side effects that you're talking about. Um, so it is your responsibility to monitor how you feel on a new drug, or even on something you've been taking for a long time. Maybe it's not the new drug. Maybe it's something you've been taking for years that doesn't
Yeah.
interact well with the new drug. So you really need to talk to your healthcare provider, or maybe even better, where you have the drug filled. Pharmacists are unbelievably knowledgeable about drug reactions. They are
That's a
fantastic.
great that's a great idea. And they're
Yes.
usually there. I mean, I go to my local pharmacy. I don't go to the big chain
Yep.
for that reason. I
Absolutely.
can go in and I can say, "Oh, you know what? I need to have this. This is a little bit different. I need to have this refilled. I have one left. I can't. I put it in my portal. I haven't heard from anybody. What can I do?" And they'll say, "Let me take care of it." And they do.
Yep.
And I can tell them how I'm feeling. I can ask them about this vitamin or that vitamin. And it's really, really wonderful. So
And
that's a very good point.
I would encourage any of you who live anywhere near an independent pharmacy like you're describing
Yeah,
to take advantage of it, because even if you pay $1 or $2 more because they don't get the big retail discount, it's worth it.
it is.
The other thing is, a lot of people don't know, and you and I talked about this, is that healthcare providers and pharmacists are mandatory reporters to the federal adverse event system, where if you report an adverse event, it goes into a huge, huge database. And you, as a private citizen, can do it yourself. If you go to the FDA.gov website, you'll see that you report an adverse event. And anybody who works in a pharmaceutical company is also a mandated reporter. So I had an electrician at the house one day who said to me, "Oh, you work for such and such? They make the drug I take." I said, "Stop there. If it's a
Yeah,
good drug,
yeah.
I'm happy for you. If you have side effects, don't tell me, because I am then going to have to make the phone call and go
Oh,
back and report it."
oh, you
Um,
would.
I would,
Oh,
yes. As
oh,
mandatory reporters, we have, I think it's 3 to 7 days to report it, both to the company, and the company will then report it to the federal database. So
Jill.
I just wanted to talk quickly about one more thing, because a
Yeah,
natural
yeah, yeah.
question is, so phase three FDA approval comes on the market. There
Right.
is a phase four also. And as phase three drugs are getting approved, there's almost always a caveat that a phase four safety study has to be held after the drug is approved, to make sure that everything we saw in the lab and in the limited space of the clinical trial holds up under real world conditions. So
And
it's when
and
you're in a clinical trial and everything is being monitored, the results may look a little differently than when millions of people across the country are taking the drug in various situations. So phase four studies are typically called for, and the results are compared to, what we know from phase three. Very few drugs are ever recalled in phase four, but it's good to know that somebody at least is watching.
yeah, I wondered
Yeah,
about that. So if they did have a big discrepancy between both phases, would they then take
exactly.
that off? Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't. Oh my gosh, I've learned so much. I know we're starting to run down now but we are going to do another session on something else, and I'll tell the listeners about that. But I wanted to do something. I've learned really so much. My head is spinning. I wanted to ask you something, Jill. You know a lot, and you speak with such emphasis and determination, and you really want to get information out to people. Why does this matter so much to you? I've
It
never,
matters to, it
I've never
matters.
had that. I've never, I've never had, I've never asked you a question in which you didn't automatically speak almost right away. That was the longest I've ever heard you pause for anything.
Well, I didn't want to give away too much personal information. I have seen people I love have their lives completely bettered by pharmaceuticals. Um, my mom, for example,
Yeah,
took a drug for her cancer that really, kept her with us for longer
right.
than we should have had.
I remember.
I have diabetes, and because of the wonderful drugs that have been developed over the years, my diabetes is in perfect control, and I'm not at risk for any other kind of disease.
Oh,
They are, they can be lifesavers. They can also be very misused, as we know, and that's
yes.
a whole topic for another day.
Yes.
But it's important to recognize that even while they are lifesavers, there are risks, and we need to be on the lookout for those risks. And sometimes it's you, as the medication taker, that has to explain to your physician why I am not willing to take this risk anymore. Yes, I have cancer, and yes, I might live another 3 months if I take this drug, but this treatment is worse than the disease, and I don't want to do this anymore. And nobody should ever force you to take a medicine that you don't want to take.
Oh my gosh, Jill, that takes such courage to be able to say that to someone. No,
As an
I don't want
adult,
to take this.
let me just put that in, as a wise adult.
I'm really glad to hear that. I bet that gives a lot of people who might be listening some hope, because, some of those side effects are really horrible, and you think, I don't know if I'm going to get through this.
Yep.
Well, to sum it up, I think I'd like to just read this, if you don't mind. It's taken from Science News Today, March 2025. The journey from lab to pharmacy is long, complex, and fraught with challenges, but it is also one of the most extraordinary achievements of modern science. Each pill on the shelf represents a triumph of human ingenuity, collaboration, and resilience. Jill, this has been a really eye-opening conversation. I've learned so much. I'm sure our listeners have too. I want to thank you so much for doing this. I know we haven't covered everything that we wanted to talk about, but let me just say, listeners, you can check in again for the next episode in our mini-series about the meds we take, when we present a patient's guide to asking the right questions about the medications your doctor prescribes. And Jill will be with us to talk about that. Right, Jill?
Can't wait.
I can't wait either. So let's get started on that. Any final words for listeners? I think the last thing you said was absolutely a wonderful way to end this episode.
Thank you very much. Just, be as smart about your health as you are. Be as vigilant about your health and what's going into your body as you are about buying your next car. That sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
You mean we should check? We should kick the tires?
Yeah, make sure the top still goes down. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm feeling kind of better already. I came in feeling a little tired from that New Year's Eve. I feel a lot more energized. Thanks for sharing all of your knowledge with us, my friend.
You're welcome. Looking forward to the next one.
See you soon.
This concludes today's podcast. We're always looking for new ideas, so feel free to reach out to Judy Raper, Associate Dean of Community Engagement at Greenfield Community College, at 413-775-1819 if you have an idea you'd love to share. Special thanks to the creators of Backyard OASIS, Denise Schwartz, Chad Fuller, Dennis Lee, and Christine Copeland. Have a great day.